Yes, thank you. Thank you all for staying so long. This probably is the strangest talk of the afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. This is the world's first working tattoo sundial. You'll see more about what I mean with this. And I want to acknowledge three other people that were critical for this. The young woman there was the original person I worked with. The guy in the middle is a machinist who actually made the bracelet that you're seeing on the left. And the guy on the right is the tattoo artiste who I carefully searched for to find someone that would do something accurate and was very interested in the project. Next slide, please. Now, if you Google for sundial tattoo, you'll find hundreds. And these are some of the most beautiful ones, but they are tattoos of a picture of a sundial, sometimes even including the shadow. Well, that's very nice, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not a sundial tattoo. It's a tattoo with a sundial depicted. Next slide, please. Next slide. And I'm not talking about strapping a sundial on your wrist. Many of you have seen that kind of thing. There's also this, where you could just carry something on your back, but how do you orient yourself? How do you get any kind of accuracy? This is something else, although very funny. Next slide. So my design desiderata for any sundial, and we've been hearing about this, is attractive. I want it to be attractive and somewhat artistic if possible. I'm not an artist, I'm more an astronomer. Durable, able to withstand vandalism if it's in the public, accurate, depending on how the design, you can get different amounts of accuracy, feasible to make and feasible to pay for. And I like to always throw in novel aspects and sometimes even hidden aspects, like sneak in my birthday somewhere unannounced on the dial. Next slide. But now for a tattoo sundial, I want to apply these principles, but let's look at them. Well, I want it to look good. Well, in this case, you want someone that can design a nice pattern and last for a lifetime in this case. I want it to be durable. Well, there's no problem with vandalism in this case, but the pattern could fade with time. And so I'm very careful now about not going out in the sun with this thing. Accurate. But how do you make it accurate? How are you going to orient your body? Where are you going to put it on your body? I want to make it feasible to make. And what's going to be the gnomon? And if it's not always going to be there, where can you store it on your body so you can take it out as needed? So there was a lot of these problems that I think we eventually solved. I want to have novel aspects. Other than just that it's a tattoo. I finally settled on altitude dials. The most common that we know about is the shepherd's or the pillar dial. We've seen a couple illustrated already today, like the one in my palm on the left, where you're measuring the altitude of the sun. And then you have to know the date in order to do this. You set it for the date, and then you read the tip of the shadow. And it seemed to me like this might be a way to go. And on the right, you see a 3-meter version of this a public sundial that I designed here in Seattle, where now it's a fixed one, and it's for a fixed latitude, therefore. And you know where north is, so you can now read the date. You don't have to know the date. And there's other various things on there. So next slide, please. And the design we have is really related to a Japanese thing that was done 300 or 400 years ago now, the Hidoke sundial in the Edo area. It was made out of paper, and you fold up the paper at the indicated point on the top, so it's perpendicular to the rest of the pattern. And then the shadow of the top edge, which is at the top of the slide here, will cast onto the long flat edge. And you rotate the dial around an azimuth until the flat edge is nice and parallel with that fold line, as I labeled it in the upper right. And so you just have to judge that. And then you look where the pattern is. Well, you look at the part of the dial that has for the month. And so some of them have it cut into 6 2-month intervals. Some have 12 1-month intervals. It's the modern version by Fred Sawyer on the right. And you want to pick up only that one. That's the one that you want to have cast the shadow, because obviously the shadow is longer in the wintertime than in the summertime. And so you have to have the right one that you pick up along the fold line. So you'll see that this one, this tattoo sundial is based on this. Next slide. So what do you have to know for this type of sundial? You must know the latitude you're at. You must know the date. It must be level. You don't need a compass, though, so that's nice. And you have to measure the sun's altitude, or you are measuring it. You don't have to know what it is in degrees. And now there's one other thing you have to know with this sundial. Some of the experts around it will know what that is. Next slide. You have to know whether you had lunch yet or not, because you are measuring the altitude of the sun. And there's twice during the day when the altitude is the same, 2 hours before, 2 hours after solar noon. And so if you've had lunch, then you read 2 hours, then you know it's 2 p.m. If you haven't had lunch, you know it's 10 a.m. Or another way of putting this is you have to know whether the sun is east or west of the meridian. But since you don't have a compass, you don't know exactly where the meridian is. Next slide, please. Well, this is the beginning. This was a project over 5 years in the end, where this graduate student got quite interested in sundials, and she had a couple tattoos, and she said, I want a tattoo sundial. And so she and I began designing it, and then she was a whiz with Adobe Illustrator and really helped with the pattern. And so here we are with a mock-up, as you can see, with a gnomon that is just a nail there. And we've got a level because we have to be level. And we're putting in a crude pattern just to test some concepts back in 2014. Next slide. Well, so after we developed a pattern, and this is an early version of the pattern here, I got you can get a decal for any pattern you have, and that's very nice, and you're not committing yourself to a tattoo. And so here's a decal, but the scale was too large because it's now beginning to fold over to where you do not have a plane in your forearm. Well, first of all, we decided on the forearm as being the place to do this, rather than your chest, or rather than holding up your finger. It would be best, to actually have the gnomon be on your body too. But we just could not think of any way to do that accurately, and so we came up with the idea of having a bracelet of some kind, and then on the relatively flat portion of your forearm. Next slide. So the forearm is pretty good if you keep the pattern small. And the overall accuracy is about 15 minutes on this sundial. And so that's pretty good. I'm more worried now in my advanced age of shriveling of the forearm as time goes on. I hadn't thought about that factor in the beginning. Next slide. I got a laugh out of somebody, Kevin there, yeah. And so this is just to show you some of the developments of the design that we were working with. I'll be explaining it. But the basic thing was that we got simpler and simpler because I talked with tattoo experts, and you can't get a lot of fine detail on a tattoo. especially if you want to have it be accurate. But even if you want to have something be read, it has to be at least, I forget what it was, at least 16 font or something like that. And so these are the technical details of this one, one of them. And we ended up on the right. That is our final design, where we slimmed it down in various ways. And we have the pattern you see of indelible time. For those of you that are not native English speakers, indelible means that it's fixed. It can't be moved, like indelible ink. This is indelible time we can't mess with very much either. Next slide. So the final design is here. And what features does it have? First of all, it's usable at 2 latitudes. Normally, a shepherd's dial or any such altitude dial is only for a given latitude. Why do we have 2 latitudes? Well, I'm in Seattle, and this graduate student was from Miami. And so at that time, it was going to be her dial. But I have to tell you the story that she got her PhD about a year and a half after we started, and we still hadn't gotten it finalized. She still didn't get the tattoo, and she left Seattle for a job elsewhere. And so there we had the pattern all dressed up and nowhere to go, so to speak. And she disappeared. But anyway, I like the idea of having both of them. I've never seen that on such a dial, because now by interpolating, you can have this dial work on your arm, or if it was in a shepherd's dial, between the latitudes of 26 degrees and 48 degrees, obviously with somewhat less accuracy. But anyway, we have it there. Miami is red because it's a lot warmer in Miami, which is in the southeastern part of the U.S. than in Seattle, which is in the northwest. But it's also a compass. It acts as a compass, because when you do it, when you line this up with the azimuth of the sun, those little black arrows there indicate the direction of south. Now, I didn't put little black arrows all over the thing because that would have blocked out the rest. So once again, you may have to interpolate between some black arrows. But you can see that, for instance, on the equinox, that the sun is going to be at noon in the direction of up and down here, as one example. And I also personalized it with 4 little dots on the top with the birthdays of us in the family, in my family. Next slide. Now, this is a key thing here. Oops, I'm running out of time. The bracelet was made out of a solid piece of stainless steel. It has a track on which the gnomon moves. And so rather than those paper things that you had to put up, you move the gnomon according to the date, which is on that upper part of the pattern. And the circular bubble level is also mounted on there. And so next slide. And here it is, actually, just like a watch. We made the lugs so that you could just buy a normal kind of a stainless steel watch, and there it is. And next slide. So here it is, instructions to use. On the top, we go from the summer solstice to the winter solstice, and I do not have the months labeled, so you have to just look at the top as to whether you are heading towards one or the other with those little arrows. So you slide it back and forth. Well, first of all, you align the bracelet with the pattern at the top. Then you slide the gnomon to the correct date. On the right side, you see the actual thing. Then you rotate your arm around until the gnomon shadow is parallel to any of those 3 black lines, which are for the solstices and the equinox. And the eye can judge that pretty accurately. Our eyes and brains are very good at that. And then you level your arm once you're at that azimuth with the bubble. And then this takes a little bit of doing to get the azimuth and the level done right. And then the shadow of the gnomon tip will indicate the solar time. Blue bands are for Seattle and red for Miami. And why are there bands rather than lines? Well, it turns out it can be very complicated with the lines, especially if you're going to have the two latitudes. And so the bands are for 1 hour for Miami at the top, but it's for 2 hours for Seattle here. It's for 1 hour for both Seattle and Miami as you go down, as the shadows get longer, as you get further away from solar noon. And so you can see that to do 15-minute accuracy is going to be about what you can get, because you're going to have to be interpolating between the different bands or within a band. And you can also see how you have more accuracy when you get away from solar noon with any altitude dial, because the bands become broader for the same amount of time. And then you can now also interpolate between, if you find yourself in San Francisco, somewhere in between Seattle and Miami's altitude. So you're doing a lot of interpolation here. And I've talked about the arrowheads. And then what you do finally in the instructions is think about how indelible time really is. Next slide. And these are two Seattle readings where you see the shadow on the right is exactly down the central black line. And on the left, the shadow is parallel to it. We're about 3 weeks away from the autumn equinox in this case. And that's it, except to show you the actual dial. And I just remembered that I think you can see it there all right. I have to it'll be easier this way. Well, you can see it there. It does exist. It can be used. Where did I put it here? Sorry, I didn't get my prop ready here. Here's the band on the dial. And that's it, folks. Thanks for staying with me.
Thank you. It is a really unexpected topic when you submitted this proposal, and really it is unusual. And we have one comment or question. Lutz, please. Possibly your mic should be switched on. Lutz, you have you raised hand. Roger, please.
Very interesting, Woody. I've read somewhere that your daughter or granddaughter asked you if you were ready for a permanent tattoo. Is it a permanent tattoo you wear?
Oh yes, on the first page I had the tattooist. That was him. I have no other tattoos, nor do I plan to get any others. You know, it was 2.5 hours. My wife held my hand the whole time. It wasn't all that bad, except when they make those broad colored areas, then they've got about 12 needles simultaneously putting it down rather than just lines, I learned. It's real.
Thank you. Thomas, please.
Yes, in my spare time, I'm repairing mechanical watches, and I always have a second or third attempt when I screw up, but yours is one attempt only, I think. You have to be right the first time.
Well, I can give you an anecdote about that. After I had it done, and after the bandages came off, you know, after a few days, I was, of course, very interested in checking it out. And oh my God, it seemed to be really off. And oh, geez, how did I screw up? And for several hours, I was just, you know, terribly upset. But then it hit me. The arm is swollen. when you get a tattoo like this. It takes 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to get down to normal. And I worked out that indeed, if you're, you know, half a centimeter too high, it's going to be all off. So I just had to wait. And indeed, it came down to where it does now give you, depending on where you are, 10 or 15 minutes accuracy.
Yeah, I better stay with my vertical watch on the wall of the house. I can always call the painter and do it again.
Okay. Well, thank you, Woody, for this presentation.